I think with the problem for probably the best way to do it is give you a little bit of time to talk about it. So, this is the situation. Give me a minute. I'll bring out the demo that I'm going to be using in a bit. 1 second. All right. This is a turntable that you will see more throughout the semester. But let me use this to model the merry-go-round. I mean, who here haven't been on merry-go-round? Okay, everyone has, right? Except for me. So, you know what it feels like to be on a merry-go-round. You're on the merry-go-round, someone starts spinning it for you, and if you don't hold on, you do feel like you're gonna fall out, right? Okay, so that's the intuitive picture that you are starting out with. And I want to make sure that we have a way of describing the situation in a way that's consistent with how we analyze the forces and motion so far. And our goal really here is that for you to figure out that we do not need centrifugal force to describe any of this. So let me give you a few minutes answering all these, maybe 5 minutes, and we'll go over the answers together as class. All right, let's just start out with A or B. I'm just going to combine them together and answer them together. So the key question is, what happens to, I didn't give her a name, Alice. What happens to Alice when she lets go of the merry-go-round rail? We are going to say she's been spinning, the whole thing has been spinning, and this is the moment where Alice lets go. How does she move? Moves to the right in a straight line. Okay, that's what we've been talking about. So let me just draw a few snapshots of Alice as she flies. I guess she does go off the merry-go-round. If she's not holding on to it, then she's right about one thing. She doesn't stay in the merry-go-round unless she holds on to it. So, all right. So I guess in some sense she's right. She's flying outward. All right. Do we need, yeah?
And would it be because the merry-go-round's also moving at the time that she perceived that she flew straight out because it would look like from her perspective? I don't know.
I see. So let me track a different point. So what I tracked there is just Alice at different snapshots at hopefully equal time interval. And the point that she was holding on to would be here. And then when Alice is there, it'll be here. And when Alice is over there, it'll be here, right? Those are roughly the points where she used to be holding on to that she's out. Now,
is that why you perceive you flew straight out? Or?
You could have put it that way. The easier way to put it is she's mostly thinking about where the center of merry-go-round is. And so in some sense she's right. She is flying away from the merry-go-round. Now, is it because there was a force pushing her away from merry-go-round? No, Newton's second law, right? When net force is 0, the person that was moving continues to move in a straight line without change in speed. So, in fact, if anything, she was going in a circle because she was applying the force. Because she was holding on to it, or if you're describing this, because there's friction between Alice and this merry-go-round, Alice stays in circle. If I move this fast enough so that friction force is enough, then Alice, well, when it's fast enough, then Alice flies out. Or if I have somebody who has no ability to hold on, no friction, then even when this moves slow, it eventually flies out because, and this is so the way Alice was looking at was the other way around. So she was saying when she lets go, she feels like there's a force pushing her out. Well, it's when she's holding on, there's a force keeping her in. Yeah? So can someone explain why? So why is she feeling like there's a force that's pulling her outward? Because you've been on merry-go-round, and you do feel like there's a force that's pulling you out from the center of the merry-go-round. So we are taking pains to say there's no actual force pulling you outward. So what makes you feel like there's a force pulling you outward? Normal force between what and what?
No force between her and the merry-go-round keeps holding onto the rail.
Yeah.
As you go faster and faster, the
Yeah.
speed to zero.
No, normal force continues to increase. Yeah, but there's the normal force is the key thing. This is the way I like to think about it. So I told you guys earlier that you don't feel, the only forces you ever feel are contact forces, right? So my feeling of weight, that's not based on gravity. That's based on the ground pushing me up. That's really why I'm feeling like I have weight. So here, if there's no force whatsoever, Alice wouldn't really need to hold on to anything. But imagine someone is, for some weird reason, pulling Alice back. If someone's actually literally pulling Alice back, then what would she have to do so that she doesn't get pulled back? She would have to hold on, right? There would need to be more normal force between the rail she's grabbing and her hand. So now, when there's no one pulling her, and instead she's going in a circle, does she have to grab tight onto the railing like someone's pulling on her? Yeah, so that she's accelerating inward more and more, right? So, and that increased the the contact force is what people associate with forces that you don't actually feel, like gravity, and in this case, centrifugal force. Okay? I want you to use this picture to actually do one more explanation of why we are not, why we avoid dealing with the centrifugal force. Because you might have had this, you might get this feeling from time to time. Like this question would be so much easier if we could just use the centrifugal force. Why are we not using it? And it's because centrifugal force is a pseudo force. And whenever you introduce a pseudo force to handle the effects of accelerating reference frame, you cannot stop it with one pseudo force. You have to do it in full picture. You have to do everything. So here, there's actually, I can actually demonstrate the additional force this way. Let's say you are someone, let's say Bob was sitting in the center looking at Alice, right? And so as Alice lets go, Bob looks at Alice and the point that she left. And this is what it looks like. So Alice and the point starts at the same point. And I think I kind of drew it wrong here. This point should have been somewhere here. And so Bob starts out seeing Alice move away from the point. So you might think, oh, we could use this, we could describe this using centrifugal force. But as the, watch what happens. When you look at this line of sight, what happens to the position of Alice relative to the position that she left? She starts to fall behind, right? That's a real thing that happens. Later on in the semester, we'll be able to explain this using something called angular momentum. But so if you are looking at Alice in this rotating frame, this is what you would be seeing. So this is the reference frame where we are describing Bob as stationary, this point as stationary, and Alice as flying outward from this stationary point. Should be flying out like this. Does anybody know the name of the force that causes Alice's path to go in a hurricane-like whirl? Not centrifugal. Centrifugal force is what's causing her to fly outward. If you are into weather and stuff, you might have heard this. Anybody here heard of Coriolis force? Yeah. So once you start introducing centrifugal force, you cannot stop there. You have to do more. And this is mathematically complicated. So what I would tell you is that dealing with these pseudo forces, this is it's an upper division level topic. That's why we are not going to handle it in this class. That's why in this class we are going to stick to real forces, we are going to stick to centripetal force, inertial reference frames, and not deal with all this mathematically complicated stuff. So that's really the reason why we are going to stick to inertial reference frames and real forces. But in your upper division classes, you might actually get to this in upper division when you have taken more calculus and you are better.